Hello and welcome to today's video. Today we're reviewing the Ultralite 480 mobility scooter. This is made by a company called Electric Mobility, and as far as I know they're mainly a UK company. So this machine is an older machine. As far as I am concerned, the older the machine, the better they are. And I'll go through a few things on this machine that's particular to this one, even compared to some other ones, and yeah, plenty of common stuff as well that might benefit you. Ground clearance on this machine under here would be 2 inches or 50 millimeters, which isn't much, but it'll get you over most type of surfaces and dips in the curbs, etc. The overall weight, including the batteries, would be 41 kilos or 90 pounds. And that's all in one piece. You can actually split this apart for putting in the boot of a car, and I'll go through that with you in a second. But it's quite simple, and it's a similar principle with any machine you're actually splitting apart that's on this level. This mobility scooter will be classed as a small travel and even also referred to as a boot or a trunk mobility scooter. So this can be split apart to essentially go into the boot of a car, and there still should be room for shopping and everything else afterwards. So yeah, it's a good machine overall, and I'll go through it with you. So one feature with this, and this is like any mobility scooter by the way, is you have the swivel seat here. See this lever here? Lift it up, keep it held, and that'll lock in a few degree increments usually. So in this one it's 45 or 90 degree increments, so you can turn it around backwards all the way around. So it's handy if you're trying to get out. Obviously the alternative method to that is you could adjust the tiller wheel here. If you actually undo this and loosen this, that'll allow you to bring this forward and back. Then you have your basket in the front. You have a crash bar here as well. So if you're in the likes of a shop where, to be fair, by the looks of this basket, that has been its crash bar, but you're not damaging the plastics of it. It's quite hard to damage the plastics at the front of that, to be fair, with what's on there. Same with here at the back. You've got 2 anti-tips here, 1 and 2. So if you were to come up a steep curb and essentially you were to come back, or the motor ever decided to give a bit of extra power, it won't go back further. And I'll show you what I mean there. So I'm coming up a curb, that blocks it. So it can essentially stop you turning the whole thing upside down. So this is in drive at the moment. I tried to push it now, it won't go anywhere. So if you're on a hill or anything, the second you let go of these levers as you're driving it, all the 4 wheels, the 2 back wheels actually lock up on this. So if I was actually to put this in neutral, essentially, or out of the drive position, that will within reason allow me to push it. And when I say within reason, sometimes, see the way it kind of locks up, it slows itself down? Kind of speeds up, slows down. That's freewheeling anyway, and you don't want it left on that if you're putting your granny on it. Like any other mobility scooter as well, it has your display. Being a smaller type of machine, it's more simpler. So you have your horn, you have your speed control, you have your wig-wag, which is common on them all, and that's what it's called by the way, or you can call it a paddle, whatever makes you feel happy. And this one is your battery gauge, and just remember that you don't ever run this down to where it is. If you turn on your machine and that needle's anywhere in the red or the yellow or even at the start of the green, you want to put it on charge, because your actual charge of this machine is when you're driving it. Okay, so as you're driving along and that needle settles, say in the middle for example, so you turn it on, you start driving and your needle's here for example, and you start driving and it dips down to here and then kind of settles around there, your battery is about 3/4 charged, and that's how you gauge how much juice you have in your machine. Turn it clockwise. You can see here that your battery is showing full. This is your lever, and sometimes this might be opposite depending on the machine, and you can actually use it the opposite way around, and I can show you that, but it's like an accelerator on a car. This is your maximum top speed the machine's willing to do. So if you push this in full whack here, it will try and do as fast as possible. Where you can actually still drive slow with this, and I'd always recommend having this about half, but you can still drive slow with this just by pressing this a little bit, so you can see there the speed I'm at now, where if I push it all the way in, it'll start going real fast. And yeah, so again, as you can see, if I press this, it's the forward direction. But say for example, my right hand was hurting me. So instead of pressing this in, I could actually push this out. It does the same thing as pressing it in. So it's handy if you've got a sore hand, if you've got severe arthritis in one of your hands, you can use the other one. And for reversing, it's a similar thing. Push this side in, hear the beeper. I know it sounds like a beeper for a tractor or a JCB or something, but again, personally, you can a lot of the times take them out of the machines. And if you want to know how, leave a comment. Here's your horn. Now, next thing I want to demonstrate is why I think these machines are more for the likes of shopping centres or areas with smooth surfaces. So actually on this occasion, this machine is being used to drive from the house all the way up to the shops and back and carrying a bit of shopping home. So it's being overused really for what its purpose is, but I'll just show you what the driving quality is like on this, on a bumpy surface. You can hear it. I'm really going to come down onto the gravel here, which again, you shouldn't do. You can even hear the wheels spinning on it. And it's an absolute bone shaker. So I know for someone like me who would, like if I was in my elderly years and there we go. It got up though, in fairness. I'll explain what I mean in a sec. So the big thing is, like, if you're elderly or you've got disabilities and essentially you need a mobility scooter, obviously there's reasons behind that, and some of it can be weak bones, weak muscles. You could have issues with arthritis, etc., etc. So by getting a machine like this to help you, albeit get to the shops and all, something as this small of a machine. And the reason why I'm covering this is I've seen this happen again and again. Someone thinks, oh, I'll get a little small scooter to go to the shops in. And what happens is it nearly leaves the person worse off when they're finished with the machine. They get home after being shaken to hell. And yeah, it's just not a great thing for your body, using something on this size. But nevertheless, if you've got a budget and it's very low and it's the choice of a really old, bigger scooter or a very newer, smaller scooter, I'd probably pick this. It will do it. It's just not going to be as comfortable as something with a suspension, etc. Okay, but it will do it. So overall, I do think this machine, and it is an older machine, but I do think they're great. I really like electric mobility brand products, and electric mobility, if you're watching, I'd love to come over one day and have a visit to your place and go through a few more of your machines. So next thing probably is covering how to split it apart. How would you split this apart for the car? Quite easy actually, and I'm going to try and do it one-handed. So first thing you have is your seat is on there. Some of the time you can just lift it off, but what I would recommend is this lever here, the swivel lever. You would lift it up, and bear with me, the whole seat now comes off, just like that, okay? So when you're actually lifting up that lever, and I'll just show you, and the reason why you have to, even when you're putting it back on, you need to lift up the same lever, is there's a mechanism here, and that locks in here. So that's where you get your turns in it, as each notch you can turn in 4 directions, okay? So anyway, next on the list is you have this wing nut here. And if you have any issues with your mobility scooter, that you're going over bumps and it's cutting out or the battery's going, etc., it's usually because this is probably not tight. Alright, so I'm going to turn this wing nut to release. You can even see the batteries popping up. Grab it into here. There may be Velcro, and just watch your hands away from here when you're doing it. So pull away. There's a bit of weight in them, so just be gentle and watch your feet when you're doing it. So here now we have the machine essentially down to the chassis, one chassis. Battery's here, seat is there. Obviously we have a basket. That can pop off as well. I can show you here. It's got these little slots here. So just to show you in a minute, I'm going to split this apart, and you see this detach and lock here. Again, different machines could have different ones, but there's usually a mechanism, either a lever or kind of a big plastic thing with instructions on it that you can lift it up, and that'll split the back part from the front part here. Okay, so in a minute I'm going to put the camera down. You're going to see me push this over all the way to here. You can even see it starting to do it. And I'm going to then lift this part here. So watch. So you can see the way this splits apart here. So essentially a lot of machines have these kind of little hooks where the bars, and there's sometimes, a lot of the times there's arrows there. And that's how it splits apart. So it just essentially locks in here and there, and there's a mechanism then holding it on there. It's quite easy when you want to put it back together, because what you do is you simply line it up. Obviously don't grab it like the plastic like I did there. You'd line up this part here. You'd look to line up these arrows. See those other arrows there? You just lift it up and you've got front wheels there, so you're not having to hold the weight. See there? That sits in, and make sure it's lined up, and you make sure the plastics, there's nothing catching. Push it down and that should lock back in. Alright, and that's how you put that back together. We're going to do this again, and we're going to continue with folding this down. So take any belongings out the basket, or the basket off if you're planning on breaking it down further. It just slots off here, very simple. Okay, here, here, there. So we'll undo the tiller wheel here, loosen that. Don't take it off or anything, but just loosen it. Good 5 or 6 rotations, and this will start coming down. Okay, and then what you do is tighten that all the way back up again. And you see this part here, let me show you something. If you're trying to lift this in and out to a car, having that swinging around, because especially if you take the basket off, you could be lifting it by here and also here. This actually locks the steering. You just lift it up once the wheels are straight. See here? And that essentially prevents the wheels from moving. And nothing on this is too heavy. That's what I will find with this machine. And it's capable, because it's gone through the garden, no problem. And yeah, obviously taking the basket off will make it smaller. With this seat, I'll show you something. The backrest essentially will fall down, and if you really had to, you could undo the armrest and take it off. So I reckon even the smallest cars out in the marketplace, you'll get this machine in no problem, or at the very least by taking up a little bit of one of the seats. So yeah, that's that machine split apart. Okay, so I'm going to try and do this together, put this back together one-handed here. So again, I'm lining this up to the arrows here. See the way it locks here? Locked in there. Lining up that, I'll show you here. Lining up this here, and I'm going to grab this lever at the same time. Feel it lock in? If you find that seat is spinning around for you, it means you've left this down when you're trying to get it in. Okay, so that's what you avoid. And essentially, that machine is good to go. Always make sure as well, and I was just wondering if any spotted this, 2 things. Firstly, sometimes when you're taking it apart with a car, you might be wheeling it or freewheeling it to get it close. That needs to be in drive. If that's not in drive, the person could be getting on that machine, sit into it, and they could be heading down that hill. Second thing to watch out for, the steering. If you've locked that steering on, you're going to drive off and you might end up crashing into something because you won't be able to turn your steering. So do not forget this mechanism here. Make sure your steering is working. Okay, so steering's unlocked. You're good to go. Once you're happy with the height, with the adjustment of that there, and you're happy with your armrests and everything like that, that's in drive, you'll be good to go. Next thing, best practices with charging. Charge it every time you use it. Every single day you're using it. Especially if you're using this as your main driver to go from home and you're driving a mile up the road and a mile back, and it's a regular thing. Like, the batteries on these will last you, most of the good quality battery health you probably want to be changing them every 2 years, maybe 3. But it's up to you if you want to let the thing go dead first. So batteries do expect a 2-year cycle, and you'll need new ones. Now, as I said to you, they're 2 by 12 volt, 12 amps. You can actually get 14 amps. A brand I know called MK do them. And what happens is it's just a little bit more juice, and it's the same dimensions as the 2 batteries that are in it. And you'll see here the battery in this side here, and then on the other side the other battery. It's in this plastic box. Let me show you this. On the battery box is your 3-pin connector. That's for charging it. So you could essentially leave your scooter in the car and just take the battery in. You don't have to bring the whole machine in. Okay, so that concludes our review of the Electric Mobility Ultralite 480 mobility scooter. I think it is one of their older models, and it generally will cover the 380 as well, which is the 3-wheeler. I think the 4-wheeler is more stable, but there is scenarios, well, I don't think, the 4-wheeler is much more stable, but the 3-wheeler is more nimble enough around houses or small houses or tighter areas, is a greater turning circle on it. Nevertheless, I'm a big fan of electric mobility products and would love to go over and visit them one day. And yeah, this concludes this review. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.